Hello, everybody, and welcome into Two for Talking. I'm your host, Corey Tusick. I've got Josh Yohe with The Athletic, Joe Bartnick, comedian extraordinaire, alongside. And then in the third segment, we actually have a special guest coming on. That will be Mr. Mark Kaboly with The Pat McAfee Show, coming on to talk some Steelers. But before we get into that, the Penguins over the weekend, 1-1 with the Islanders. A couple significant things happened there. We'll get into those. But the Penguins listened to Joe. And this is how you know Sid and Gino listened to the show, because they delivered the Christmas gift that Joe wanted and beat up on the Flyers. A pretty fun week around the holiday for the Penguins, was it not?
I was just enjoying it. I didn't have to work them like Josh did, but I absolutely enjoyed every second of Monday night against the Flyers. Actually, we were late for a Christmas party, but I'm like, I can't leave without knowing that we won. I just looking at my phone. It was joyous. That's what I said. I said, don't let that fat bastard Andy Reid ruin your Christmas, because Sid saved it for us. Because no one in my world wanted to live with me if we lose to the Flyers before Christmas. It's a bad holiday, but the boys came through. Sid, incredible. Rusty, incredible. Everyone played well, and we get into the minutia. But Josh, how did you think? At least Philly went. The weekend was maybe a wash, but Philly was magnificent.
Yeah, and we kind of called it. We said his holiday crowd, Philly in town for the first time. Sid's heating up. That's got like 4-point Sid game written all over. It's exactly what he did. You could just feel it coming. Philly stinks. They had a nice October. They started a little better than we expected, but that's not a very good team. And the Penguins made it look fairly easy in that one. That was certainly a nice win. You wanted that feel-good win going into the holiday break. They got exactly what they wanted in front of a sellout crowd. As for the Islanders games, I didn't think they played very well on the island in the first game back, but I also, at the risk of sounding like a Penguins apologist, I don't like to criticize teams too much, because that first game back after the break, when you've had a few days off, a lot of weird things happened in that game. I think the year before, the Penguins won on the island 7-0. Like, I think it's always an odd feel to that game. They didn't play very well, but to their credit, less than 24 hours later, they come back to Pittsburgh, and I thought had a really nice performance. I know it got dicey in the last 5 minutes, but there was kind of a fluky element to that, a team pulling the goalie twice and score, So maybe it wasn't a perfect conclusion for the Penguins, but they really controlled most of that game, and the trajectory is clearly moving in the right direction for the Penguins. So all things considered, you got to be really, really happy with where they are right now.
Oh, absolutely. And plus another sellout crowd on Sunday, which is fabulous. Two nice houses for the boys. I think too, if you looked at the first game after the Christmas break, I think almost every home team won. Like, the team that had to travel really was at a disadvantage.
Yes.
And then the Penguins have been right now. I think they have the best record in back-to-backs, the second to back-to-backs, which is crazy, because they're the second or third oldest team in the league. I'll put on my Gino jersey, which is in my closet. I don't remember Gino looking this fast. The move he made yesterday, was that 2014? I mean, his wheels have been going. I thought even the couple games that we looked bad against the Devils, I thought he had his legs. Philly, he was flying. This weekend, he was flying.
I know, and it's been like this. It's been all season with him. Really, it has. And I know his numbers probably aren't wowing you, but remember, he's not getting to, play with Raquel and Rust every night either. I assure you his numbers would be a little better than they are if he had those guys as line mates. But you're right, just his foot speed, his overall, physically, the way he looks. No, you got to be really excited about that. He's been outstanding. So, no, I'm seeing so many good things from the Penguins right now. The overall team defensive work, so much better. I mean, I don't care who you want to talk about, man for man, way better. And I would go back to October when certain people were struggling so much. Those people are playing better now, and chief among them, Michael Bunting and Erik Karlsson. And Karlsson, listen, we were critical of him early in the year because he deserved it. He was terrible. He's playing pretty well right now, and he's generating so much more offense. I mean, that's who he's supposed to be. And the Penguins are a different team when he does that. Michael Bunting, he was just god-awful in October. He couldn't do anything right. He was screwing Gino out of goals, jumping offside for no reason. To his credit, when he's good, he's good. and he's a little streaky, and he's on a heater right now. Man, has he been good on the power play. I mean, he's a little guy, but he's not afraid to go to the net. He does it pretty well. So just a lot of good things happening right now, Joe. And Sid and Gino still aren't putting up huge games statistically, except for the Philly game, of course. And that I think will still come, but it's really encouraging to see so many different people chipping in right now.
I know. I mean, I'll make 3 quick points. One, Gino's making the Ronnie Francis, Brian Trottier plays.
I know.
In his own zone. He's in position. It's incredible. It's like a mirage. 2, Graves, he's on an eyesore right now. He's playing decent.
Okay.
He's playing, you're not like, oh, Jesus Christ, Graves. Like, he's making plays. He knocked over a couple people. Yeah. He's in position. He's getting the puck out. I don't have a problem with this game right now. And the team's playing so well. This is the first week all year. I'm not going to be crying to play Jesse Puljujärvi. I'm happy with the top 12. Even though Nieto isn't exactly, Brendan Shanahan, I don't have a problem with the way the whole team's playing right now.
No, and that fourth line, I mean, it's probably because of Blake Lizotte, who's been way better than anybody could have expected. I mean, he has really been a big contributor for the Penguins, especially because he can skate. I mean, he can really fly. And Achari and Nieto, it's so easy to be critical of those guys because they are obviously very limited offensively. But you know what? Achari has punched in a few goals this season, and for whatever reason, that line is working. Like, they're really good defensively. All 3 of those guys kill penalties at a very high level, and they're scoring just enough. Like, I always say it, like, you couldn't have too many Craig Adams on your team. You can't have those guys who don't score at all. You need somebody who punches in 7 or 8 goals, just not 1 or 2. That's a big difference. And that's what those guys are doing right now. So that line's working. And you mentioned Jesse Puljujärvi, by the way. We should note he was put on waivers today.
Oh, look at that. You always break news on this show.
I'm not breaking news, really. You just weren't paying attention, and I respect that earlier today. But he's on waivers. We don't know if he will be picked up. I wouldn't be shocked if somebody did pick him up, though, because I don't know what I'm missing with him. I'm pretty much in line with Sullivan with his lineup decisions. I really like Puljujärvi, and I know you do too, Joe. I don't understand the issue. Clearly, and I've heard this, there's something about his game that irritates the coaches sometimes. I think he's probably guilty of certain mental errors that maybe we don't notice from the press box even or from watching on TV, but stuff coaches know. And he's had that reputation before, a very physically gifted guy who sometimes mentally just isn't all there. Obviously, he's on the outs right now. I won't say he's in the doghouse per se, but he's not playing. He hasn't in a while. I wonder if somebody will pick him up. It would not shock me.
I think somebody will pick him up because I think he's one of the 12 best Penguins.
You too.
As well. I think Sullivan doesn't like that he seemed to every once a game take the Gino penalty, which you kind of got to be Gino to take that penalty.
Yeah. That's right.
I mean, there's Gino and then there's everybody else. I'm scared now for depth because he's, the Purple Haze played okay. I never thought he was a problem, but I don't want, I don't want whoever, the next guy up, Puljujärvi is way better than the next guy up being Hayes, especially if it's a top 9 role.
No question.
The other thing is, I mean, the word snake bitten is, I don't know if I agree with it, but I mean, Drew O'Connor, he's playing hard. He's getting so many chances. He has to bury one. I mean, does he think he get points for hitting the goalie?
I used to say you get 2. Some people think they get 2 points for hitting the logo.
He's a mess. And, I should mention RIP Jimmy Carter, who passed away yesterday at 100 years old. I believe it was Jimmy Carter who coined the phrase a crisis of confidence back in the day. And that's what we're looking at with Drew O'Connor. Like, his confidence level, it's gone. And I never saw it coming. Not the way he finished last year, the way he started this year. And I feel for him. He's a really good kid. He works so hard in practice every day. He just needs to score a goal. And I think if he scores a goal, maybe everything completely changes, but he's not doing it. And I think it's starting to impact the rest of his performance. He's usually a really good penalty killer, good defensively. We've seen some issues there as well recently with him. So I think his whole game is struggling. but it's not like they have any depth behind him. So I don't know that benching him would really make sense.
Well, now with Pugliarvi being the
Especially
option,
if he's gone. Yeah.
because I thought the third line, man, I thought they had a really nice forecheck the last 3 or 4 games. I mean, he's been
Yep.
on the puck. He's been on it. He just
I mean, he has, and he can help you even if he's not scoring because of that tenacious forechecking. He's big, he's fast. He brings a lot to the table, but he is a bit of an enigma at this point. I mean, he really is. I keep waiting for him. I always say this kid's going to score 20 goals one year. He's got all the talent to do it, and he does. It's just not coming. And eventually, they either need to move on from him or they need to get some production from him. He's too important in their lineup, in the hierarchy of their lineup, to not score at all.
I'm sorry. I'm still concerned that Pugliarvi is on waivers because he has that prick in his game, and I can see him going to a Patrick Division foe and being a real pain in my ass.
One of those,
I really
guys that always scores against us,
and just running rust. Just I wouldn't. I hope he goes to Seattle.
Yeah, it's
Ronnie, save us, please.
I'd be surprised if somebody doesn't claim him.
I would be too. I mean,
it's not like he's looked bad out there.
Are you surprised that he was waived, Josh? I mean, that's like one thing to not play him, but to waive him
a little bit. Yeah, I am. I mean, maybe it's not. Maybe they're doing it almost as a service to him. Maybe Sully pretty much said, "I'm not going to play this guy." Like he's whatever he did. He wasn't happy with him. I don't know. But it's weird because I've also had conversations with Mike Sullivan this season, as recently as November, when Sully told me, it's like, this guy's like a different player this year, the way he can skate. Like, you can tell he's really back all the way from that hip injury. So, and there was a game, I think it was the third game of the year in Toronto, when they made him a healthy scratch for the first time. Sully sounded legitimately upset with himself after the game for making him a healthy scratch. Because it was almost like he was saying, like, we really missed him tonight. I shouldn't have done that, but we wanted to get McGroarty a game or whatever. So I'm surprised by how the whole thing has gone down. I do think the bad penalties have played a big role. I get it. I know that frustrates coaches. I still think he's one of their 12 best forwards. I really do.
I do too. Now, he is a 2-year deal. Is that almost trying to get someone to just take the deal away?
Could be.
I mean, the contract away.
Yeah. And that would work. That would give them a little bit of cap flexibility moving forward. So I don't know. It's an interesting situation. I was a little surprised when I saw the news. And who knows? Maybe nobody will claim him. It's not easy to claim guys on waivers these days. Everybody's up against the salary cap. A lot of teams don't really have a lot of room to bring anyone else in. But this is usually when guys go on waivers, it's like, okay, whatever, that guy's nothing. But this is one of those guys that kind of makes you do a double take, like, oh, this guy can play a little bit. So
yeah,
very interesting.
I thought the kid, I thought his one game up on D, I thought he looked okay. He didn't stand out as a sore thumb. I thought he played okay.
Yeah,
which was nice to see. I was when you hear Letang wasn't playing, I'm like, oh God. And that just goes to prove how Graves, and knock on wood,
right,
played okay.
No, I give Graves credit. He's been better. There's no question about it. He certainly has had some rough spots this season. The funny thing is, he was so bad last year. Like, he actually has been better in general this season all year, but the bar was so low. I mean, for God's sake. But I see improvements in his game. He's not an eyesore right now, like you said. He's not getting burned one-on-one. He's not making the awful decisions with the puck. If he can just be an okay third pairing guy, you will take that. And I would also say Grizzlick's been much better lately as well. Mm-hmm. Hasn't been great, but he was so bad in November for a stretch. Like, they were going to make him a healthy scratch until Pickering ended up getting sick and he had to go back in the lineup. But he's been up and down, but he's better right now. And Grizzlick is pretty good in the offensive zone, I will say.
He's good at that power play, which is huge.
He can run a power play. He gets shots on net. He gets a shot through. He can skate. He does some good things in the offensive zone. So he hasn't been, I don't think, quite the disaster people have made him out to be. He had a slow start, but everybody's kind of clicking right now. And I will say that I don't know. This team could go on a 5-game losing streak, at the drop of a hat, and it wouldn't shock me. But they're playing a lot better. They're a point out of a playoff spot right now. And let's give Mike Sullivan some credit for all the idiots out there who said, Sully's lost the room. He's got to go. No, he hasn't lost the room. They're playing really hard. He's made some adjustments. Clearly, they're playing better. So some of what happened in October can be on him. That's fine. But I would give him some credit for the way they've rebounded since Thanksgiving.
1,000%. But to get to the, I think maybe the bigger question or a bigger concern is, and it was a very low bar, but I don't think Jari's playing that much better.
No, I think he's marginally better, but I still think he's a real problem.
Yes,
I think he's their number one problem. And I don't know what happens with the goaltending moving forward. Ned was pretty good against the Islanders.
He battled.
He did. I mean, I'm actually curious to see who plays in Detroit on New Year's Eve, because I thought Ned was certainly better than Jari from the last 2 games. And I wonder if you go back to Ned against his old team. Maybe. I don't know. But I think Sully is in a position right now. You hear coaches say this sometimes. They'll say, well, if you play well, you're going to play. But in reality, they know who they want their number one guy to be, and that's the guy that's going to play. I don't know that Sully's in that spot right now with Jari. I really think he'll play whoever he thinks is better. And I think they've given Jari some looks. If Ned puts together another good game or two in his next couple of starts, don't be shocked if he gets, 60, 65% of the starts moving forward.
No, that's good to hear. I just want to win. I'm not anti-Jari on right. purpose, but because I think Ned was not very good at all when Jari wasn't very good either.
He wasn't.
So it's kind of like
that's right.
Going to Ned, wasn't the answer because he wasn't very good either. But right. If Ned's going to play like he did Sunday, then okay, then run Ned out there.
Yeah, I mean that's the old cliche of giving yourself the best chance to win. That's literally where Sullivan is with his goaltending. Maybe his best goalie's in Wilkes-Barre. That's another story, but. He's got these 2 guys right now, and you play whoever's playing better. Neither one's been great. But yeah, Jari, he's been a little better. But I can't say that he's been good. Even the Philly game, he really let the Flyers back into that game with it. I think it was the 3rd Philadelphia goal. It was a terrible goal.
Yeah.
So it was Couturier, I think, scored that. It's really,
right on the ice.
Really bad goal. He needs to be better. He's given up, the first shot again for goal. All the same old crap over and over again. So yeah, he's still the single biggest problem. The Penguins have a lot of issues. He's still number one, but by a pretty big margin, because I still think he gives them the highest ceiling when he's playing well, but he's not. He hasn't all year. He hasn't really in 2 years now. It's a concern, no question.
Yeah. Do you think, how does POJ look, coming back? I mean, he hasn't, he's not logging a ton of minutes, but, does he look serviceable in your opinion?
I think serviceable is the perfect word for POJ. He's fine. So he looks like he always looked to me. Like you wish he'd be a little more productive in the offensive zone because of the way he can skate and some of the physical tools he has. It feels like he should be more of a threat offensively than he is for whatever reason. We know what his weaknesses are. He's about 150 pounds soaking wet, against certain teams, against certain power forwards. He's a problem. When you're playing the Washington Capitals, you don't want Tom Wilson on the ice against him. That's a mismatch. You don't want him out there against Ovi. That's a mismatch. But if you play him accordingly, he's not going to hurt you. He's okay. He's perfectly fine. And I think he's the same guy that he always was, and you gave up nothing to get him. So it was probably a smart move by Kyle Dubas to bring him in. We'll see how he goes, how he plays moving forward, but I think he's been fine.
I think he's played good.
Yeah.
I think I'm pleasantly surprised. He seems to be a little bit more physical. He hasn't made any glaring mistakes. He's in the right place, which is no one played good on defense 6 weeks ago. So the fact that I can't pick out one guy and say that they're not playing up to at least a pleasantly surprising level, I'm very happy with.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. Can't complain with that. I mean, when they're in the right, we were, like you said, we were just hoping that they were in the right place. So
yeah, no. He's getting the puck out, I think POJ, I thought Josh undersold it, but he is maybe watching more closer than me or a little Sterling guy. And I may be Josh is a positive guy though, but I'm pretty happy with POJ. I think he's been better than Serge. I think he's been pretty good. It's serviceable. Pretty good is a little better than serviceable, right? In the lexicon.
It is. No, I think the thing with POJ at some point, and I'll say this about a lot of players over the years, at some point you just have to disregard the fact that he was a first-round pick because people hear that and they expect certain things because a first-round pick.
Oh yeah, I forgot that 3 years ago.
He's not that guy.
No.
That's okay, but that doesn't mean he can't be a good third-pairing defenseman or that he can't play really well with Crystal Tang for whatever, and that brings out the best in him. Okay,
Yeah.
That's fine. So no, I applaud the decision to bring him back. He has been a little better than fine. He's been okay. I mean, I like how the blue line in general is doing right now. Is bad. I mean, the blue line, other than Jari, was their single biggest problem the first 6 weeks of the season when they couldn't stop anybody. They were all bad. We've seen, I think, a mass improvement from that entire unit, and that needs to continue moving forward. But no, I like it, and he's an option. With one thing about Pickering, he's had the concussion. He's had he missed a game with sickness. If he's still a kid, if he's going to be banged up moving forward or isn't always available, it's nice to have more than one guy who can play with Letang. And we know Pickering's looked pretty good with Letang at times. We know POJ can play with him. He's not always an easy guy to play with. So if you have a couple of young options in that spot, that's a pretty good thing. And Grzelcyk has been better with Carlson than I expected. Marcus Pettersson back now. When Marcus, is back in the lineup, we don't know how much longer he's going to be on the hockey team. Of course, they could win 10 games in a row. I still think Marcus is going to get traded before the deadline, but they've got some options there now, at least.
I mean, that's the whole key. Was 6 weeks ago, we literally were a terrible team that could not get the puck out of our own end. It was like every team was on the power play. And now they're in our zone for the correct amount of time, and we get the puck out. So, it's the little things I'm thankful for.
Yeah.
like being in the playoffs for 2 hours over the holidays. It's great. I love it.
I screenshotted the standings just to pass it along to my friends. Look at that, second wild card. Playoffs started today. They would, they'd play Florida. That's great.
We know how that would go. A quick question before we move on about Rickard Rakell. I mean, we know Pettersson's probably gone, and I think Josh, you said, last week, maybe it'll be a trade where you kind of get some second round picks for him, and then maybe we dump off a third or fourth rounder to still upgrade the current team. Rickard Rakell, though, we still have him for another year, or is it 2 years beyond this? Two more. So 2 more. I think it's $5 million a piece.
Yep.
Do you think he's a tradable player? I mean, I want him to stay here because he's playing so well, but the contract might not be attractive. I don't know. What do you think he stays here through the season?
Oh, he's tradable. I think he's perfectly fair right now at $5 million a year the way he's producing. I think the contract looks fine. They could trade him probably right now if they wanted to. At the deadline, they could certainly get something for him. I'll tell you, the way he's going right now and the way the team is playing, I actually don't think he'll be traded if I had to guess this season. I think you let him keep playing on Crosby's line the way he's playing. If they make the playoffs, great. If not, okay. If you're going to trade him, I think the summer is the time to do it for the simple reason that everybody I have spoken with expects the salary cap to go way up next season. So all of a sudden he's making $5 million a year. Well, it's not going to feel as bad to bring that guy onto your team next year when the cap's up a few million higher. And at that point, they could certainly make a hockey trade, I would think, and get like a legitimately good prospect or a fairly high draft pick for him. And you get that money off your cap if you want to do it. But right now, the way they're playing, the way that top line is functioning, it'd have to be a hell of a return for me to trade Rickard Rakell right now. I don't know how much sense it makes at the moment, Joe.
No, I said this last week.
Yeah, you did.
As soon as you trade Rakell, you're looking for Rickard Rakell.
Yeah.
Right.
The second you trade him, you're looking for him.
Yeah.
And he's only making $5 million.
Fine.
And the cap is going up.
Yep.
So imagine going in the free agent fishbowl and trying to get a number one line winger who's the number one goal scorer on a team. That guy costs more than $5 million.
Oh, yeah.
No.
And who can play with Sid and Gino.
Yeah.
And there's been many a goal scorer that can't play with both.
Right. No, there's no harm in keeping him. There's not. I understand he's one of your few tradable assets who doesn't have the big no trade clause. I get that. But I just don't think now would be the appropriate time to do it. Now, if they go on some 10-game losing streak in February and they're 8 points out of a playoff spot, okay, maybe then. But if they're going to be competitive, trying to get a playoff spot, I would not deal him. It certainly keeps Crosby happy playing with these two guys as well. And there's something to be said for that. Like, even if you're in a quote unquote rebuilding phase, Joe, you still have to have Sid and Gino players to play with. You know, you don't want to put them out there with Craig Adams on their right wing. That
No,
doesn't make sense.
absolutely not. And the thing is okay, we don't have. I mean, I don't know what Rutgers doing down in Wilkes-Barre, but we don't have a guy that's going to plug in and play with Sid right away anyway. So that's another reason why it's like, okay, we traded. We got two kids in the pipeline going to come up that need top 6 minutes. We don't have that guy.
Mm-hmm.
No, you're right. Absolutely not. So yeah, all the more reason. The more I think about it and the more I talk with people in the organization, I would be surprised if Raquel goes anywhere. Now this summer, who knows?
This summer, all bets are off because we can go get a bunch of different guys in the summer.
That's right. But for now, I think Pedersen goes for sure. Other than him, we'll see. I really think that's up to the Penguins. If they want to play well and be in a playoff spot, I don't think Kyle Dubas will obliterate this roster. I don't.
I want to make 2 quick points before we move to the next segment. One is I want to give a stick tap to the Penguin fans. 2 sellouts. That's fantastic.
Yeah,
and a team for winning those games, which is even bigger. Makes people want to come back. And the second tap to stick up my boy Rusty Razor wearing the A. You got to love it.
Yep. Much deserving.
Yes.
Good to see that. Yeah. And good to hear that, in your opinion, because Raquel's name gets thrown out there everywhere. And I'm thinking to myself, I'd like him to stay with Sid for the last 2 years of his career potential.
How about the way Raquel's playing, by the way? Man, we give Rusty all the love in the world and deservedly so, but man, Raquel's doing some things right now too. He's a good hockey player.
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, it'll be interesting to see. Hopefully, we can we can win tomorrow against Detroit. It feels like a must win to me. Like, you got to beat that team. They just fired their coach. I mean,
they're struggling. Yeah.
So, well, when we get back on the second segment of Two for Talking, we'll talk ups and downs around the league. But before we do that, we got to get into insurance, and that is the Reg Dunlap of insurance. That'll be Mr. Bill Neofis.
Which reminds me, guys, I did have my annual holiday tradition of watching Slapshot over Christmas, because that's clearly the kind of human being I am. I know some people have their holiday traditions. I'm sure they're like wholesome family things. I'm watching Slapshot at 2 a.m. by myself. But anyway, I talked with Bill yesterday. Of course, he always says he's enjoying the podcast as always, and he appreciates all the listeners, and we appreciate him as our first and most loyal sponsor. So a big thank you to the Neofis Insurance Group. They just wanted to send along that they wish everyone a happy holidays, a happy new year, to be careful out there on New Year's Eve. For God's sake, it's not that hard to Uber. In fact, we recommend you do it on New Year's Eve. And for all of your insurance needs, our friends at the Neofis Insurance Group, give them a call. Bill's like the nicest human being on earth, by the way. He and his staff, they're unbelievable. So 412-364-3388, the Neofis Insurance Group. They are the best. We would not lead you astray.
Happy New Year, Bill.
Yeah. Happy New Year.
Thank you.
So now we'll get into the second segment of Two for Talking. We'll go around the league, up and down. We'll start with Josh. Josh has the teams, Joe has the players. So we'll start with the up. We got the Tampa Bay Lightning, 7-3 in their last 10 games. And Josh, you texted me and said, look at their 37 plus 37 goal differential. Good Lord.
Best in the Eastern Conference, second best in the National Hockey League, behind only Vegas. I feel like Tampa's under the radar right now a little bit. I know they're top heavy. We always say that about them, but man, that's some serious star power they have. Jake Gensel very quietly on pace for like 40 goals and 90 points, like he always is. Kucherov might be the most underappreciated great player of this era. They're a scary team come playoff time, Joe. I wouldn't want to see them in my building in the first round.
Oh no, that's actually a good little faraway bet there. Is the Tampa Bay Lightning? Yeah, I think last week I picked one of their third line guys as a pick of the week. Yeah, I mean they're good putting it all together, and no matter what, no one wants to face their kind of like the Penguins from a couple years ago. The top 6 is incredible, and they got a couple studs back there, on D obviously, and the big man in net. They're going to be tough to beat. And they have. I love Sully. He's probably the best coach in hockey. Him and Sully. They're a tough out. It's funny. You look up and to me they win every game I watch. Because they're one of the teams I watch because I just love Point and I love Cooch and I love Sorelli. I know he's Italian. That helps. But how about Nick Paul? Who knew that guy was? He's like a mainstay down there now.
Yeah, and I would be okay if Toronto wins that division just so we can see Tampa, Florida in the first round. That would be a bloodbath. It'd be wonderful hockey. I always love when those two teams play. That'd be great.
Oh yeah, it was. They've already played some great. They had a big brawl in the preseason. You talk about two great teams, and all you hear the whiny Canadians. Oh, it's the taxes. Oh, they have to pay taxes. Yeah, maybe because they have two great coaches and know what they're doing.
Yeah, might be onto something.
Speaking of the whining Canadians, stick tap to I think Steve Byrne, your buddy Steve Byrne, posted and said if Trump brings Canada into the United States, they'll finally have a Stanley Cup champion.
Well, how about Latvia using the Kavorka to beat the Canadian juniors?
Oh, I love it.
Yep. Next up on your up is the team they've gone 7-2-1. They're winners of 3 straight. That would be the Winnipeg Jets, and they kind of just keep hanging out up there.
They had the incredible start, then they faded a little bit, but now all of a sudden they're hot again. I know come playoff time they never have the goods. I don't know that they will this time or not. They've got the goalie. Like I'm a pretty big believer in that guy. I think they'll be a tough outcome April. I do. I don't know that they're the favorite in the West. I won't go that far. But I give them credit for the season that they're having. I don't think anybody expected that in September when we were making our predictions. We thought maybe they were a playoff team, but not much more. But they've been one of the best teams in the league all year, Joe.
Yeah, they turned that ship around when they started to hit the free fall. They really caught it and turned it around. And I picked a guy that's very hot for my little pick. And, I think I just think they're one stud defenseman away.
Yeah.
From really, really making an impact in the playoffs.
I would agree with that. I think they're very interesting. And the Western Conference playoffs are going to be incredible.
They go 9 deep. Their top 9 is very strong.
I love Lowry. I mean, they're just
that third line. I pined for Adam Lowry before he wore the C. I thought, wouldn't that be the perfect third line center for the Penguins?
Yes, it would have. He'd be the perfect third line center for a lot of teams.
Every team, because he's the number 1 third line center in hockey.
Yes, he is.
Oh, we remember what it was like to have that guy.
Oh, what a luxury! Yep.
I know.
Oh, he's Jordan Stahl with a mean streak is what he is.
Yeah, okay. That's a good call. Yeah.
Number 3 on your list would be the New Jersey Devils. They are first in the Eastern Conference, and man, they I didn't think the Penguins played bad against the Devils, but they're just a good team.
You look at their roster, there's not a lot in the way of weaknesses there. Jack Hughes gives them a legitimate superstar, and I'm not. If you tell me right now that that's the team to beat in the Eastern Conference in the playoffs, I wouldn't necessarily say you're wrong. I'd still pick Florida probably if I had to pick one team, but Jersey's a very formidable team, and I just think they're going to be around for a long time. There's a lot of young talent in that organization, and I feel like they're another team that's under the radar. Nobody's really talking about them, but they're got more points than anybody else in the Eastern Conference right now. They're doing something right.
Well, all they needed last year was a goaltender, so they got Markstrom, who's
they
playing
got
great.
A solid goalie now. Yeah,
and I love their top 6. They have 4 legitimate top 6 wingers, and they have. I think barring Draisaitl and Jesus, I think they got the best 1-2 center combo with Heishier and Jack Hughes.
Yeah, Nico's the real deal. Ask Sid and Gino about him. They'll tell you they don't like playing against him. He's so good defensively.
I don't like watching them play against him.
No, he's really good.
Yeah, he's
really
great.
He'll still score you 25, 30 goals. Like he's legit. Now they're built to win in the playoffs too because of guys like him. So they're going to be good for a while, and they're having a nice bounce back season, as I think we all kind of expected they would.
And it's kind of fun just because of the way that Sheldon Keefe got kind of treated in Toronto. It's kind of fun that they're good.
It kind of is.
I always love seeing Toronto get it stuck to them. So, and on the way down, we'll start with the first team on your list. That would be the New York Rangers. Just not doing good in general, but I saw your tweet right before the show. A bad loss tonight.
Well, I know we had them on the list last week, but since then they've gotten their asses kicked. I think it was at Tampa and somewhere else they lost the last couple of games. Jersey killed them right before the break. And tonight I was watching, they played really hard tonight, Joe. I don't know if you saw any of the game or not. They were in Florida. They were down 2-0, came back and tied it at 2. Then they fell down 3-2, and then Kreider tied it at 3 in the third period. Then Florida scores with like 5 or 6 minutes left. And then Tkachuk fires a puck into the crowd, and the Rangers have a power play with 3 minutes left. Bob made a couple of ridiculous saves. Florida holds on, gets the empty netter, wins at 5-3. The Rangers are now, I believe, in 14th in the Eastern Conference, and they're only a point or two ahead of Buffalo and Detroit. Like, they're literally a point away from having the worst record in the East, Joe. And I just looked at their schedule in January. They've got 2 Colorados. They've got a Vegas. They've got Jersey. They've got Carolina. They've got Boston. They've got Washington. They are in a world of hurt, Joe. They're 8 points out of a playoff spot. I'm not going to say they're done, but I'm going to say they're just about on life support for this season.
No, they might be sellers. I mean, Zibanejad may be gone. Kreider may be gone.
They're trying to trade both of them. Yeah,
people can't understand what happened to Zibanejad. I never thought he was, Doug Gilmore, but I thought he was better than he is. I've always been a Kreider guy. I don't know. The one thing that I've always gone with, and you can see in my notes, I was just never an Adam Fox guy. I thought if he played in Calgary, he would have came in 9th in the Norris Trophy balloting. I don't think he's a number one I don't think he's the number one defenseman on the Stanley Cup winning team.
Yeah, he can certainly run a power play. I will give him credit for that.
Yeah.
But in terms of even strength play, I know what you mean. He's a good player. He's certainly not in the same league as Kel McCarr or Quinn Hughes. Like, not even close.
Or Miro Heiskanen.
No, right. Absolutely not. So I agree with you. The Rangers are in a fascinating spot because they're older than people think. All their best players pretty much are in their 30s.
Yeah.
And they've got the goaltender, so they're always going to be, you would think, competitive because of him. But what has happened to them in the last 6 weeks is staggering. And I can't believe nobody's been fired yet. The pressure you feel in the New York market with Peter Laviolette or Chris Drury, like, somebody's going to take the fall for this, you have to think.
You would just, they're saying they didn't like to see Kreider's name they didn't like how they treated Barclay Goudreau, or you didn't like how they treated, Kreider, or you would think that after 6 weeks and this being a President's Trophy winning team, that they would have more in them and just come back and play better.
I know.
On paper, I've been on record for a few years saying that they're not as good as the parts are better than the sum.
Right.
For some reason, I like everybody individually. I think Fox is overrated, but I like them all individually. But as a team, they don't play good defense. I'm like the Rangers defensemen. I say they love big hits. They love moving the puck up ice. They love running power plays. They love jumping into play. They don't like clearing their crease. They don't like playing defense.
No,
their defense.
Don't. And if you look at them the last 2 or 3 years, they've had really good teams. But they've also been incredibly reliant on the power play and on their goaltender. And they're very good in those areas. But if you watch them, and I'm not a big analytics guy, but you look at the numbers 5-on-5, and you just, in terms of the eye test, not a great team. They're just not. And they never look like a well-coached team to me either, quite honestly. They haven't for years. So they're in a weird spot. I mean, they could certainly sell some guys off if they wanted. But this is supposed to be in their Stanley Cup window, and this is no Stanley Cup team.
What what would make this real quick? They just never seem to. They never outwork anybody.
No, they don't. No, something stinks there right now. That's
hard to win hockey games whenever you're not outworking other people.
Yeah, it is.
We got number 2 on your way down is the San Jose Sharks, which I'll just say I watch a lot of West Coast hockey because, then the kids are like, the house is quiet. If you're a dad with young kids, you understand. It's like the house is quiet. I love some West Coast hockey. The Sharks have always been playing in the last week, and I'm like, I am so sick of watching the Sharks. They've lost 7 in a row.
Plus, the Sharks have a 7:30 start, so they're always a half hour. They're always a half hour. They're always the last game. I don't know. I'm going to fight back against Josh. I love me some Celebrini. That kid plays hard.
He's great.
That's just fun hockey. You watching Celebrini is worth staying up for, Corey.
If you had to pick between having him or Connor Bedard for the next 15 years,
not even close.
I'll
take Will Smith.
But no, Celebrini, like he's every time I watch them play, which admittedly isn't that often because it's the Sharks, but he jumps out at you. He's special. He really is. So they got lucky with him, but I mean, we knew they would stink.
I just love Celebrini.
Me too. We knew they would stink, but you lose 7 in a row, you make the list. That's just the way it is.
And then I did not get enough time. I didn't have enough time to look into the drama here, but you have the Canucks on the list with the Miller Pedersen drama.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on right now. Apparently, those two aren't always on the best of terms. I've certainly heard whispers about that. They lost a game to Seattle the other day. They were up 4-1 with 5 minutes left. And Seattle scored 3 goals in the last 5 minutes, including 2 with the goaltender pulled, I believe. And then Seattle won it in overtime. I think the Canucks will be okay. That's a good roster. We all know Rick Tocchet's a hell of a coach. And we know if the locker room needs a shakeup, Jim Rutherford will find a way to make it happen. But there's something weird going on there right now. Of course, Miller was away from the team for a few weeks. Nobody really knows why. And that's JT's business. I'm not going to get into that. But he and Pedersen, I mean, there has been rumors for years of some friction between those two. They better figure it out because the Western Conference is no joke. And if there's any locker room turmoil, that's not going to work when you have to deal with the Edmonton Oilers or the LA Kings in the first round.
I don't know the exact problem. I don't know. But it is the fact that Mr. Pedersen, a little sensitive, and JT Miller's a Pittsburgh guy.
Right. That's right.
That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
JT doesn't like something. He doesn't keep his mouth shut.
No, he does. And listen,
and I'm going to make this point. They just should have made JT the captain because as great as Quinn Hughes is, sometimes, you need the alpha dog to be the best player doesn't have to be the captain if there's an alpha dog in town.
Yeah. And
JT Miller is an alpha dog.
No, I mean, I interviewed JT the first time when he was like 16. And I've known Brandon Saad and Vince Trocheck and JT Miller and John Gibson forever. And the only one I never really had a relationship was JT. I don't have a problem with JT, but JT is like so brash. And he's just too brash for me. I'm a gentle flower. I'm like, Jesus, this kid's like got some attitude. And the thing about JT, and I know people who are really close with him, he is just hyper competitive. This guy wants to win so bad. And if he thinks you're not holding up your end of the bargain, he's going to tell you. And that's just how he is wired. So, I don't know. There's issues in Vancouver, but I would trust Rick Tocchet to take care of whatever it may be. But I do not like how they're playing right now. Something's a little off with that team.
That's what's so interesting about this. Because if anybody, other than maybe the chief, can deal with a locker room, it's Rick Tocchet.
Damn right. Yeah. And he will. I mean,
I know. I'm not saying he won't, but it's funny he's gotten to this.
I know. No, and who knows? You know how it gets when there's, two guys who might not like each other. Then you got rumors out there. I'm getting texts from people. Do you see this rumor? Do you see this rumor about these two? I'm like, all right. I wouldn't believe everything you read on Twitter.
No, I don't. I don't know exactly.
It's interesting though.
Yeah, it just makes sense that JT wants to win. And he's brash.
Yeah.
And some people don't like criticism. Some people are not good with criticism.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if there's an alpha dog, it's Rick Tocchet.
He's the ultimate alpha dog. That's right.
All right. Now on to Joe's list. We'll start with the ups. We got Rasmus Dahlin in Buffalo on the way up. The captain there, 7 apples over his last 5 games. The second star of the week in the NHL. So
3-game winning streak.
Buffalo.
For once they didn't make Josh's down list. I had to give the captain the Swords a little run.
Yeah. Lindy not so rough lately.
No, he's a special player. I mean, he's one of these guys, if he played on a good franchise, we would probably view him as a legitimate star player. He's that good. And to his credit, obviously, he's starting to play a little bit better. They only had one way to go, of course, in Buffalo. But it would be not, he's a special talent. I don't think there's any question.
No. Next up on your list would be Winnipeg. Mark Scheifele had a hat trick against Toronto, but not just a hat trick, 6 goals in the last 5 games. He's on fire.
Yeah, the Jets are soaring.
Yeah, and that guy can shoot the puck. He's been able to shoot the puck from the second he came into the National Hockey League. He obviously still can. So he's still really good after all these years.
I believe he has like 10 seasons of 20 more or more goals going for him right now. Something to that effect.
Yeah,
that's phenomenal.
Not bad.
Number 3 on your list would be from the CBJ out in Steve Mears land. It'll be Zach Werenski.
The Columbus Blue Jackets are nipping at our heels, little brothers nipping at our heels, and they're playing pretty good. That big Russian thug they got scoring some goals over there.
No, it's funny you say that, Joe. I was looking at the standings today. I was like, oh, goddamn, Columbus, like, they're only 4 points out of a playoff spot. What's going on there?
I know.
That might just be how bad the East is, but to their credit, they haven't fallen off the cliff.
No, and you know what? I mean, tragedy aside, you get rid of Tortorella and you hire Steve Mears. I don't hate you as much anymore.
It's a significant upgrade in the personality department.
Oh, absolutely. It's like, you want to see Mearsy. It's always like turn my head when I hear Mearsy on the NHL Network on the fly. You hear him calling the goal. Like, it's like, yeah.
I'm glad they're doing better there, because I remember Mearsy's first ever game on the call after he replaced Staggy. It was the second game of the year. The Penguins lost in Chicago like 10-1, like in 2017. And I was like jokingly on Twitter said Staggy never lost a game 10-1. I think I pissed Mearsy off. So I hope Columbus keeps playing better now. I still feel guilty about that one.
Mearsy with the Pedersen gene.
Down we go with Sam Bennett, 1 assist in his last 5 in Florida. Joe.
Yeah, I watch a lot of Panther games, and he's just not, maybe he's taking a little break, maybe he's pulling the old TJ Watt. He's saving himself for the playoffs. But, I have to pick guys every week. So.
Yeah. Well, no, but I mean, if you go, like, I'll just, behind the curtain here. I mean, I look at their stats, and then also I try to Google them, look at like what news is out there. And there's a ton of news about him moving. Like getting.
Yeah. And that goes to my Ricard Raquel point. You just be looking for Sam Bennett.
Yeah, right. And I'll say this for Bennett too. He is, to me, the classic player who's better in the playoffs than he is the regular season. Like, that's when he helps you win. I don't think Sam Bennett in December is anything special, but all of a sudden in April, you want him on your team. He's just one of those guys that's built for the playoffs.
I will say this, though, and I agree with that 1,000%, is that when Barkov was hurt and Kachuk was hurt, Bennett started the season on fire.
Oh, yeah. No, he's an interesting player. He is. And he's just a mean son of a bitch. I love how he plays. Yeah.
The Penguins.
Oh.
Number 2.
It's a shame they don't need Marcus Pettersson. and Pulley Harvey.
Number 2 on your list, you kind of mentioned it earlier, Adam Fox, Mr. Irrelevant if he was anywhere but New York, right?
Yeah, I think I haven't even seen any highlights of him in the last 10 weeks. I don't know what he's doing. What do you have? He has no stats, probably, right?
No, he's got like 2 assists, but like nothing. Like, I mean, nothing. They're probably secondary assists. Yeah,
they have many problems right now, and he's just, he's a really good player. I've never viewed him as some superstar. I 5-on-5 to me, he's pretty ordinary.
He's a little guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He plays smaller than he is.
Yeah, no, that's true. He does.
It's hard whenever you're a little guy. So, number 3 on your list is down in Carolina, Martin Nashis, somebody that we were, talking a lot about in the summer, but 0 points his last 5 and a little quiet.
Well, he started the season on fire. Like, they're like, Jake who? And now he's cooled off. He got crushed the other night and came back out. So I don't know. Maybe knock some sense into him. I'll tell you what, Josh, I don't know if you've been noticing, there's been some absolute cheap shots and clean hits. And there's been a lot more violence the last week and a half in hockey. I don't know if you've noticed that.
I have, and I actually kind of like it.
I love it. I love it.
I was watching the other day I was reading something rather about television ratings, and it's a big story. The NBA, their TV ratings are way down, and Major League Baseball and hockey, they're down maybe a smidge, not terrible. And the NFL's the NFL. We're all addicted to that. But I'm a big, and so the talk's been, well, why are ratings down? To me, a big part of the problem, especially in the NHL and the NBA, like teams don't hate each other as much as they used to. There are not as many rivalries. Like there's nothing that sells like a violent rivalry quite honestly, and we don't have as much of that in the NHL right now. And I hope you don't want to see people get hurt, especially with concussions and everything, but a little bit of hostility goes a long way toward promoting interest in sports. So I have noticed some violence in the last couple of weeks, and frankly, we sometimes forget it's the entertainment business. I like a little bit of that sometimes.
Yes, my buddy Andy Picaro thought that when ESPN took over the contract, the linesmen were going to let him go a little bit longer.
That's right,
and they have a little bit more. There's been some more. There's been a lot of just good old hockey fights the last couple of weeks, like people mad.
It was getting to the point the last couple of years where fighting like legitimately was out of the game.
Oh
yeah, but it's bad. It's bad. The last 2 seasons, it's been creeping back in, which I like. It's funny, like the NBA apologists. Oh my God, it's like they can write a doctorate on everything of why the ratings aren't down. It's like, yeah, nobody cares.
Nobody cares. There's no rivalries. The star players take off every other game.
Yeah, I mean,
place to start.
They take off and they don't even play hard.
There's no violence. Nobody goes to the basket anymore. It's all like, I remember when I was a kid in the 80s and 90s, like you'd see a brawl every now and then. People kind of like that. It's okay. Like,
yeah, everyone went to the hoop. I mean, I could do another 4 hours on what's wrong with the NBA. We won't have to do that. But I mean, like hockey people. One thing I understand about the hockey ratings too, though, I think they get screwed because don't they? When the game's national, the local teams still have their own broadcasting numbers.
Right. So that's
how stupid is that, though?
Totally flawed system. It is. I mean, the ratings are okay for hockey because hockey fans are so loyal. There's just not enough of us, maybe. but it is a very loyal contingent of people, so they're never gonna fall off the map. That's for sure.
I'll stick with this when you talk about the rivalries. I don't know how you guys feel about this. I loved when we came out of the lockout and it was 8 games against your division, like 4 at home against the Flyers and 4 on the road against the Flyers. I love that. I mean, I know they wanted Sidney Crosby to be able to go to Western Canada every year and all that kind of stuff, but I don't know. That was great.
I have mixed feelings on it. I understand what you're saying. I do think it's important that Crosby plays in every building each. I do personally.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important that McDavid plays in every building. I believe that, but I cannot deny that they don't play their rivals enough. If I were in charge of the schedule, like instead of playing Florida and Toronto 3 times a year, that would strictly be twice a year, once there and once here, and you would maybe play the Capitals and Flyers 5 or 6 times, something like that. I would like to see that, but I guess I'm riding the fence. But I still like to. So maybe I just enjoy getting to go to California in January every year. I admit that's part of it.
No, as someone that's lived in different cities, it's very important to have each team come to your town.
Mm-hmm.
I think it is.
I agree with that. I do. I missed that. That was phenomenal. I mean, maybe it's because we beat them 8 times. I don't know, but the rivalries back right out of the lockout were phenomenal. The Capital games, even though they weren't in our division. I don't know. I just feel like we don't get enough of that.
Well, the only problem is that there's just too many teams in the league right now. Nobody wants to hear that, but there's just so many teams in the league now. That's why you have a couple of teams in the division. You only play 3 times now, which is the Penguins only playing Philly once last year. I think it was something like that. It's ridiculous. Or the Capitals only playing Pittsburgh once this year. Like that is an issue for sure. But I still think it's important if you want to sell the game and showcase the superstars. I don't think having Crosby only play in Western Canada once every 2 years. Then if he's hurt and misses one of those trips, then it's only once every 4 years. I don't think that's healthy for the sport.
No, and I will say this, though. I don't really care what the ratings are.
Yeah.
I'm watching them. It seems like people just want to put down hockey. Oh, the ratings. Well, us hockey fans don't care. Like I don't care if it ever gets more popular. I just want Penguin games to sell enough tickets and no one's worried about moving the team.
That's right.
And that's it. Like who cares who cares if a bunch of people, who don't F hockey. Like, oh good. What's your sport?
Joe is just waiting until this spring where we can celebrate 50 years without a Stanley Cup having been won in Philadelphia.
Yes. Oh, I certainly am.
We have to have a special show for that, by the way. I think. Maybe
yeah. It's funny. The Broad Street Bullies don't. I haven't done their podcast in a couple of years. Maybe they just got sick of losing. And the first time I went on, they got me a bottle of Crown Royal. It was a big appearance, and then they get less and less every time. How about Michkov getting benched? I mean, is it not glorious to watch Tortorella just ruin that kid?
Speaking of which, I will say, and obviously he's got a lot of talent. That game in Pittsburgh right before Christmas, I didn't notice him once all game. I mean, he was
worried about the defensive strategy of the game because that's what Tortorella's going to teach him how to play. Ruin him, Tortorella, and then have him go out west, please.
He's the wrong coach for that kid. And it's funny. I've interviewed a lot of people who have played for Torts over the years. The third line guys, defensemen, they always love him. You will not hear one bad word about Torts, but ask like Marian Gaborik about playing for Torts or ask some of the big names and you'll get a completely different response. Stars do not like playing for him. If they think that kid's going to be a star, it's something they need to consider.
Yeah, the Flyers can keep being the farm system for the Kings. And more players out that way. Well, that'll do it for the second segment. We'll come back on the third segment of Two for Talking, and we're going to have a special guest, Mr. Mark Kaboly from the Pat McAfee Show, to talk some Steelers. Well, welcome into the third segment of Two for Talking, and we have a special guest joining us. It's the end of the Steelers season, and nobody is more plugged into the Steelers than Mr. Mark Kaboly, the Pat McAfee Show Steelers correspondent, also WWE digital content. I don't know. What do? You write or do you?
Create contributor to the website, social media team. Hopefully, after the season, we'll up a little bit more to doing some features and stuff like that. So,
have you taken any flatback bumps yet?
No, me. I took a chair shot when I was about 25 at a local armory in Monessen. That's about.
I've seen the pictures.
But man, with the knees and the legs and the feet and the Achilles, I'm pretty much over that.
On purpose, you got hit in the head with a chair, or you were just? Oh, okay. You were participating.
Hey, come on, we're doing kayfabe now. I'm using wrestling terms here. I was the commissioner at the time, and I made a inappropriate decision to the Hellfire Club, and they got mad and hit me with a chair behind my back. So,
okay. Yeah. No, I didn't know if you were just in the crowd and something went awry.
No, it was part of the script.
There's a blurry line between wrestling and real fighting in Monessen.
Well, you should come to McKeesport then.
Mark and I worked in McKeesport forever. We know, and now he's so sophisticated. He's got a grand piano in the background.
For those of you that aren't watching the YouTube, Mark has moved up in the world.
Yeah, you're going to people think that's really my piano. You know what? Back to McKeesport real quick. Me and Josh would be sitting outside the parking lot at the Daily News at 3 a.m, thinking there's no worries in the world. Now I look back at it, I don't know if I would do that again if I'm this age.
I don't know what we were thinking. We were making like $10 an hour. We were just taking chances. It was fun.
I was making $10 an hour.
Well, Mark, I wanted to ask you. I have a lot of questions about the Steelers, but first of all, we saw Tomlin's press conference today. And he kind of fluffed over a lot of stuff. But it can't go without saying the 5 of the last 7 years. What is it? They've had lost 3 games out of the Thanksgiving break. Is this a combination of, is it, who they're playing and they're not elite? The Steelers aren't an elite team. Is that the problem? Is it Tomlin? Is it poor scheduling by the NFL, or a combination of all of that?
Well, the other years, I don't think they were just very talented the past couple of years, but this year in general, that's just a brutal schedule to go through in 11 days. I don't care how good you are. If you're going Philadelphia, Baltimore, Kansas City in 11 days, 3 different days of the week, and 2 of them on the road, a lot of teams are going to lose that stretch. However, I think there's a clear divide between the great teams and the good teams. And I think we pretty much saw that over the past 2 weeks that the Steelers aren't a great team. Okay, they're a good team. If everything goes right, they play perfect, and the other team helps them out, they can maybe play with Kansas City, Baltimore, and those guys. But if everybody's playing at their best, they don't much have a chance, I don't think, moving forward right now. But I don't think you can really say this year compared to other years. You look at last year, I mean, they did win 3 in a row to end the season. So it's just a difficult situation right now. It's kind of interesting as a reporter when guys start bickering each other in the locker room after the games. I'll take that every day of the week. So at least piques my interest a little bit, but it doesn't do good for them. So
yeah, Mark, that doesn't usually happen. I don't think. We hear about it when it does happen, and we it's pretty much been harmony all season. It sounds like. You have a better feel for that locker room than anybody. Do you think there are legitimate problems in that room right now? Is it just people being pissed off that they lost, or what's going on there?
Look where it's coming from, Josh. It's coming from Patrick Queen and Deshaun Elliott for the most part. Guys who are outside the organization last year. I mean, I think both of them came from Baltimore, or Elliott was in Baltimore at one point. I don't know if he came from Miami last year or not. I can't really recall, but they're outside the organization. I don't know if they have quote unquote fell in line yet, as in Tomlin usually puts his fingers on a lot of guys and says, don't talk about this stuff publicly. I just find it interesting. It's mostly those two guys because my theory is they come in from the outside thinking it was going to be certain players are going to be, superstars, all pros, Pro Bowls. And they're saying, wait a second, they're making these kind of mistakes in these type of situations. What are we doing here? And there's not really much being done about it. But, it's kind of interesting that it was brought to light like this. And the public loves to blame the media. You guys are digging. No, those guys offered this up. And once you offer it up to us as a nugget, it's over, my man. We're going after it. And that's basically what happened. And that's where we're at right now.
I wouldn't talk about the defense, Mark. I absolutely agree with you that I just think we got screwed. We as the golden you can't make someone play 3 games in 11 days. Yeah. I mean, Steph Curry just took off a game against the Clippers because he had to play 2 tough games in 1 week.
Yeah.
And they're making these guys play in the NFL 3 games in a row. So it's an excuse. It's an excuse, but it's warranted. It's bullshit. But I want to ask you a question, though, because I just don't understand. As I brought up last week, it infuriates me when in the keyest parts of the game, our all-world TJ Watt is having a Gatorade when it's 3rd and 7 in the 4th quarter. Now, I'm 55 years old. I never saw Mean Joe Green, Mel Blount, or Jack Lambert, or Donnie Show ever have a glass of water when the defense was supposed to be on the field. So when it's 3rd and 7 and it's the one play we need him and he's over, you got to be carried off like Kellen Winslow to take that play off. And he's over there yakking it up. Oh, yeah, hey, let's take it easy. Has anyone ever asked that? Or what is the reasoning behind that? I mean, you know more than anybody. So what is the reason for that?
I'm just laughing because you sound like a guy that walks uphill both ways in the snow to school when you were young, right?
well, that's impossible. It's downhill on the way home, Mark. Let's get that straight.
Back in my day, Joe Green never did this. Back in my day, these guys weren't like AB, but who was it, Josh, that shot at the helicopter?
Ernie Holmes.
Ernie Holmes, yeah.
Okay.
Well, you know what? I wouldn't care if he shot a helicopter if he played every down.
Right.
Ernie Holmes didn't take 3rd and 7 off.
That's right.
But the crazy thing about it, if you look at Watt's snap percentage, he's still very high in the 80s. I think what he tries to do is time it up, as in he's on the field for the most important plays if they're 3rd and long. Maybe there's a couple of times that you have 21 play drives like you have in the Philly game that he can't do that. But if you look at the numbers, I think he plays more than any other of the outside linebackers. I guess he's just trying to pace himself. I've asked him about that before. And
wait. I'm interested to hear what he said.
Well, he basically said that, I'm just trying to get out there for the biggest plays of the game. If you look, there's a lot of times where he will take off maybe 1st and 2nd play down of change of possession, just so he gets an extra couple minutes of rest time. I mean, last week he probably shouldn't have played last week. The ankle was still a little iffy, and the week before that was even iffier. So
no, I know. I mean,
making excuses.
I mean, no, this goes back 2 weeks, and then I'll get off of it. But literally, if you're gonna, you shouldn't be resting on 3rd and 7. And if you're the all-world guy making the most money, your percentage play should be 100%. I don't think Jack Labert. Oh, I was the 80th percentile middle linebacker.
I would be curious to go back and see how many snaps those guys took in the 70s.
Yeah, I don't know
if it was 80%, 90%. I mean, there's only a handful of players that do that, and the most of them are on the Steelers would be the cornerbacks, the offensive linemen, and maybe like Patrick Queen. Those are the 100%ers. The other guys are just.
As someone who went to Three River Stadium in the 70s when there was no internet and there was no 500 cable channels, everyone in the city of Pittsburgh knew when Joe Green didn't take a play. No one wasn't paying attention to how many times Joe Green wasn't on the field.
How much was beers back then? Because they're about $29 right now, I think.
It was like $3 we in the beer pool in section 616.
Joe strikes me as the kind of guy that used to sneak liquor into Three River Stadium.
Yeah, of course we did. we had our own beer guy, Chris. I think God rest his soul. He used to just bring beer up constantly. Everyone chipped in section 616 Three River Stadium. Yeah, I go way back. I'm telling you, but we'll get on. People don't want to hear.
It's almost like knowing an usher at the Pirate game and slipping them a couple bucks and getting prime seats.
Shut up, Mark. Anyway, we got inside.
I thought you just walked down the prime seats of Pirate games. I didn't even know the ushers were still alive.
Keep my connections out of this, Mark. All right, it comes in really handy. But another question for you, Mark. Steelers related. You mentioned earlier, it's pretty clear who the great teams in the league are, and then there's kind of the next level. Well, those great teams all have one thing in common. That's the quarterback position. We're talking Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes. Maybe not Goff, but you get my point. It's a quarterback-driven league. I think we all agree Russell's been an upgrade over Justin Fields, and he's been a massive upgrade over that Judas Kenny Pickett. But I had to get my little shot in. But I also think it's clear that this guy's not going to win a Super Bowl here. I'm sorry. He's a nice player. He's a professional. He's not getting any younger. What's the long-term plan here? Do you think, and let's say they lose out. Let's say they lose to Cincy, they lose in the first round in Baltimore, whatever. Do they still bring Russell back? Do they give him big money? Are we talking multiple years? What do you think the plan is?
I think so. I think you just have to add pieces around him, because if you go backwards again, you never know what you're going to get. Are you going to trust Justin Fields to be this guy? First of all, are you going to trust Justin Fields signing here?
I wouldn't know.
An opportunity going anywhere else. If you don't, where do you go? I mean, do you bring Kyle Allen back? I mean, come on, you're not going to go get Sam Darnold and pay him $50 million. I don't know if I would trust that right about now, too. And you're not high enough in the draft to go get one. So he is your best option right now. All you need to do is probably add pieces around him. As long as Tomlin's around, Arthur Smith around, the core of the defense, which will be around. I don't even know if they have many free agents pending this year other than Najee. And, he can hit the bricks and throw Jalen Warren in there. So I would assume that they are going to sign him. If they offer him a decent contract, they can't lowball him. They can't say, hey, we'll give you a 1-year deal worth $10 million. I mean, it has to be something Baker Mayfield like, 3 for $100 maybe. It might sound a lot, but that's still
that does sound like a lot.
Well, but that's still – but if you can structure it in a way that makes that third year team-friendly where you can cut him, so it's basically 3 for $60 or something, and $30 million is a very cheap –
I'm not knocking Russ. He's been solid.
I don't know what else you would do right now.
He's been solid. That's the point, I guess. They're in a bad situation in the next few years of the quarterback because, it's not easy to get that good one, and I don't know that there's a path to do it for them.
Well, Mark, I want to ask you this. I liked Pendix coming out of the draft. I thought he was low enough. He looked like a pro guy to me. What do you think about keeping Russ? Because I'm just enjoying Russ. I don't care what anyone says. It's fun to have an NFL quarterback. We haven't had one since Ben. I mean, it's just fun to throw the ball past the sticks every now and then.
Yeah, it would help if they added some pieces around him.
Oh, absolutely. I don't think – he's made a few glaring errors, but I think in general he's been good. But then do you go out – and would you waste the number 1 pick on the guy in Miami or the guy? I love the guy in South Carolina, the way I liked Pembix in Washington last year. Do you waste the number one? Not waste. Do you use the number one pick to get the quarterback and have Russ teach him, or do you go out and get a receiver, or you get a lineman, or where does the number one draft pick go?
I think. I mean, first, I mean, it all depends on where it falls. I mean, you could be picked from 20 to 32 right now, and assuming we're not worrying about 32 at this point because they're not going to win the Super Bowl.
I would say, are we making the trade with Detroit?
So you're pretty limited in what you can get. They obviously need a receiver. I mean, first you have to make a decision on George Pickens. Is he your long term? If you have any thought of signing him long term, then you approach him this offseason and try to get that done. If not, I don't want him coming back next year, man. I would try to dump him right now and trade him if you make that decision of not wanting to bring him back and sign him to a long-term deal. Wide receivers up there. Defensive line's a little iffy, although you could probably throw Benton out there a little bit and be okay. But I think you need to add pieces. I mean, the wide receiver crew is just not helps. It doesn't help when you got – I mean, Calvin Austin's had a decent year, but he's still not a legit number two, I would say. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you got Pickens, Austin, Roman Wilson's just non-existent.
Time out. What the hell's going on with Roman Wilson? And then these gentlemen are both Michigan men, so they know all about Roman Wilson.
First of all, he's tiny, but that doesn't mean anything. Well, he got hurt in training. He got hurt up at Latrobe, right? High ankle sprain, kept him out like 6 weeks. And it was very hard for him to catch back up. And then finally he did look like it, but something happened where he did not be able to, I don't want to say learn the playbook, but catch up with, I hate to use the Tomlin moving train, but you're around him so much, you start using Tomlinisms yourself. He wasn't able to catch up to the moving train, right? Gets hurt again. At that point, they're like, forget it, sit his rear end down, make him learn to be a pro. I don't know if it's because he wasn't treating his rehab correctly. I don't know what it was. Nobody's saying anything. But if he's talented, you can see he's talented. Now, if he can come back next year and pick up where they thought he was going to be this year, then maybe you got something coming. But can you trust that right now?
I didn't know Arthur Smith's offense was so complex.
Well, it's not that. It's just, I mean, you remember Ryan Shazier was benched after he got hurt his rookie year. Yeah. He was benched coming back because he was not approaching his rehab correctly, right? Or with any type of intensity. So they sat him for like 4 or 5 days. It almost feels like this. I'm just guessing here, but this feels like a very similar situation here with Roman Wilson when it took him too long to get back and he maybe not approached it like he should have. I mean, at times I ask him, oh man, it might have been before the Colts game. He goes, I'm going to play inactive. And I see you out there playing the practice and I see you warming up before games, inactive. Then all of a sudden he played maybe one game, but
he didn't even get a target, I don't think.
Yeah. George Pickens worth it. As talented as he is, it seems like he's only going to become a bigger jagoff.
Yes, that's what you have.
That's why we have you here, Mark, for the tough question.
You have to figure out, man. He is a talented SOB. As long as you keep getting him the ball, he'll be fine. You don't get him the ball, it's issues.
He took that play off and cost the interception, according to what people were saying.
Yeah, Tomlin says absolutely not today. That was not him. It was not his fault. I mean, he didn't really put much effort into that route, but what do I know? He's the head coach.
I could have ran that route, Mark.
Me too. I mean, I probably would have got the safety to react the same way too. Just go over to Freiermuth.
But, Mark, how much money do you think it would take to lock up George long-term? Receivers are getting, 25, 30 million a year?
Probably. I mean, he's not had a great statistic season.
No.
And I would assume some of his on-field behavior might take a couple bucks off of that, but it only takes one guy. I would imagine he's in excess of $20 million. I think Devonta Smith is making $25 million. He's better than him, right?
Yeah.
He has more potential than him. So I would imagine he's a 3 for 70, 3 for 75 type of guy.
I think he's a great receiver, and we absolutely need him. But if he's going to act like he does, I just think that's my question.
Here's the crazy thing, Joe. He's actually a pretty smart guy, but he's just disenchanted right now with the media, and he doesn't say anything. He acts weird. He's a very smart individual that doesn't take advantage of the media to be on his side. So any type of misstep, warranted or not, a lot of people pounce on him.
He must be smart if he understood the offense faster than the Michigan kid.
It's an SEC thing.
Well, Mike Williams is yet to figure that offense out.
Oh, that's another question. How the hell is he not? How is he not the number 2 receiver?
I don't know. Here's the kick in the rear end right here. It was between him and Adam Thielen in Carolina, and the Steelers passed on him because they thought he was first too old, and they were still worried about his hamstring injury.
Really?
The guys, over the past 5 weeks, the guys had like 35 catches, 400 yards, and 5 touchdowns.
I think we could use that in Pittsburgh.
So, I mean, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, and it looks like they might have lost that decision.
But he did make that huge catch his first game. I mean, if he can make a catch the first game, can he catch 2 the second game and then 3? I understand. Can you just say, hey, run 10, 20 yards and turn left? Yeah. I mean, how difficult is it?
He doesn't seem like the type that we're going to be running some kind of crazy gadget play. It's just like, hey, why don't you run to the end zone and we'll see if we can get it to you there.
Not George Pickens, the Martavis Bryant routes, right? The Mike Wallace routes. Run fast, throw it far, and catch it. I mean, it's not that you don't have to spend much time in the playbook to figure out that.
No.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. That's another one that's just you shake your head and you're like, you need receivers. This guy has a pedigree. He's a top 10 pick. I mean, it might have been a decade ago. He is coming off that injury, but that injury was 14 months ago.
He made that one big catch. I mean,
the game for him, right?
Yeah,
it might have been his only catch. After that.
I don't understand why we don't see a couple of Russ Moon balls to him every game. It's that's his skill set, right? That's
what the problem is now is when they weren't having the option of doing that because the running game was getting jammed up so much that the play action wasn't there, and they were playing cover 2, and they're taking away the deep ball. I mean, they have to be able to run the ball, and on the flip side of that, the offensive line is extremely young. I mean, they got 2 rookies, 1 second-year player, very, very young team, and they've struggled at times with their run blocking and their pass blocking. I mean, you think about that. How many times you see Russell running for his life? Some of that's him. Okay, he's just trying to make a play, but some of that he has no choice. But if they're able to run the ball more, that opens up the deep balls a little bit more. So I think they've just been taking that away.
People's expert opinion. What the hell happened to Broderick Jones?
That's what I was going to ask.
How do you go from winning a national championship on the Georgia Bulldogs in the SEC? Not exact, he's not playing. He's not the ACC. It's the SEC. You're the starting left tackle. Win the national championship. I mean, Alabama's D-line's tougher than half the NFL, and he joins us. And what in your opinion, like in your knowledge, what happened?
He's a guy that he's still very young. He only played, I think, 10 or 11 games in Georgia. And a lot of those games he might not have even played in the second half because Georgia was whipping him, right? So he comes in here last year, replaces, I think, Chooks, right? And he played pretty well for 12 games. You thought that jump was coming. That jump just never really materialized. He got hurt a little bit in training camp. He's gotten a little bit better now than he did maybe in that Denver game week 2, but you have to bite your tongue with this guy and just say, grit it out and say, this is our guy, because he's a 14th overall pick. He's going to get swapped to left tackle next year.
Well, good.
He's going to come back to right tackle. You got a 14th and a 20th overall pick at your offensive line, along with a second rounder in Frazier and a fourth rounder in McCormick. That has all the makings of a pretty good offensive line. But Jones, a lot of things you hear about him is, I don't even know what the word they've used to describe him. He has to be more aware, I guess, of his surroundings. I guess he does things that are boneheaded. He's only 23, So that might be something to do with it.
I like
he
how
has all the talent, man. He has a ton of talent.
Is it like this? I lined him up like the guy in Fast Money Original on Times. Remember last year how they brought him in and he just, when he run blocked, he ran over everybody. Like, we got a running game. Don't you just say, hey, just go knock this guy on his ass? That's all you got to do.
Jefferson with the tackle, right?
Yeah.
I know Josh never saw that movie. There ain't no way.
Yeah,
Fast Times at
what are you
Ridgemont.
talking about? Of course I've seen it.
Yeah, you know what? That is true. Now I think about it. You watch only movies you watch has to have a ball involved in it.
Or Phoebe Cates, right? So come on. I get so worked up about the offensive line every time.
I'm worked up about your music taste. Go ahead.
All right.
I did want to ask too. I mean, Josh, I don't know if you're going this route, but like, are they hitting a rookie wall? And what's going on with Dan Moore Jr.? Because I just saw a stat. I saw somebody tweet it, so who knows if it's actually accurate. But apparently, he's given up more sacks than anybody since week 10.
Ooh, I didn't even look at that.
And Myles Garrett had something to do with that in one game, right?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't even know that those are all his fault. But he hasn't played as well recently as he has previously. I find it quite funny. He was one of the 3 people in the locker room today. Pittsburgh Steelers, the leader in the clubhouse of having open locker rooms but nobody there. And that was today. You had 3 people in there, and Dan Moore looks at us and says, "If you're waiting for me, I'm not going to talk." Okay, Dan. But Dan's a nice guy, so he knows he's struggling as well. It doesn't. I mean, at this point, he has 2 games left as a Steeler. He's not coming back next year.
They hate the media so much, almost as much as Steelers fans hate all you guys. It's unbelievable.
Well, you know what? You know why? It's the coach. The coach, Tomlin, he's the guy.
Jay Glazer shows up. He sure puts his arm around him and bullshits with him all day. I know how it is.
I'll tell you what. I haven't sent Tomlin his Christmas card yet. I was wondering do you have his address? Because I don't know the zip code to your fears. Because that's where he lives.
I think I tweeted out. I said he lives in his fear so long he's paid off the mortgage. Like he's done. I mean,
you know what I should do? I should send you guys screenshots of my text messages from Yoey late in the game when they're punting on down 19 points with 4 minutes left in the game. It's not. Put it this way: it's not made for young kids to read.
No, it's not. And I'm proud to admit that.
Those 2 punts were just. I mean, just give up. I mean, just go ahead and now.
What was that last year? We ran out of plays. Wasn't that one, George?
Yeah.
We ran out of plays. What are you talking about?
You know what's bad? I'll text Kaboly during games, and mind you, he's like busy, but he'll just ignore me sometimes. And then I'll write, I know you can fucking read this, and I'll keep reading some more when I get worked up.
Then they'll tweet me. And then he starts the whole thing. Yeah, you media people, you got to make Tomlin accountable. I said, what do you want me to do? Go sit on him until he answers the question? What exactly do you want me to do?
Speaking of him, he's going to be 8 years without a playoff win. How many years do we have to go before he's actually in trouble?
He signed through 2027, so start there.
All right. I had to go. As for this week, by the way, I know Mark's not happy about having another Saturday night game. He hates night games. He always complains because he's up till 5 in the morning. So we got the Bungles in Pittsburgh, which should be a fun game, actually. My question is, Mark, let's say Baltimore beats Cleveland at 4:00, which I think we can assume will happen. That means the
favorites now.
Yeah. So the Steelers can't win the division. Basically, if they win, they're the 5 seed. They go to Houston. If they lose, there's a good chance they go to Baltimore as the 6 seed. Assuming Baltimore wins, do you think Tomlin plays all of his starters trying to get to Houston? Do you think he sits people and says, I don't care who we play? How do you think this all unfolds?
Well, first of all, the inactives have to be out 90 minutes before. So we're assuming that game is in hand by then. He can make that decision.
Right.
However, he does not seem like the type that's going to do that. I think the perfect scenario would be go out there, play a quarter or two, and then if it's not working out, you're not going to win, or whatever it is, then you could pull back on guys. Most guy you look at would be like Watt. He got that ankle injury. Joey Porter Jr. is coming back. He has that knee injury.
Doesn't need to be out there.
I don't think that he's going to do that, though, because he's just going to be singular focused of wanting to get into the playoffs, not on a 4-game losing streak, and he's going to do whatever he can to win this game to be able to go in on a high note. Is that right or wrong? I don't know. Is there really? We're assuming that they can go to Houston and just walk all over them.
Oh, I'm not assuming that.
Anybody.
I'm assuming Baltimore kicks their ass if they play them. So I'm just thinking of the best chance for them,
The
right?
Baltimore game was a Russ garbage throw away from being a one-score game with 5.
True.
I mean, it wasn't like it was terrible. They played
No.
terrible. I mean,
Well, they
especially
did have 4 starters out on
Jimmy.
defense too. So
I would think Russ would be the one guy you would sit. That's the one guy that can't get hurt, other than maybe Pickens.
I don't think though. I don't think anybody's going to sit. Maybe if somebody gets banged up a little bit in game, where it's like, okay, he can go back in. Let's hold him out. But Tomlin's, as Josh would say, he's a guy that has a lot of. He's a macho type of guy, so he's not going to go in there and say, "Hey, we're going to lose. We're just going to play for tomorrow." He wants to win because
Mark, I'm sorry,
a macho man.
Mark, what would you consider a good season? What would going to Houston and squeaking out a 17-14 playoff win, would that be enough to just shut everybody up and they go, hey, they won a playoff game, the monkey's off the back, or do you need more than that? Or
I mean, it's hard. I mean, I look at like Pitt, right? Pitt wasn't supposed to be very good this year. They end up 7-6, yay, but they lost 6 games in a row. So things have, I mean, the bar has changed. Once they got to 10-3, I think the bar has changed. However, if they beat the Bengals, go into Houston and win that game, man, it's going to be hard to criticize a 12-win team that won their first playoff game in 8 years, right? There can be some criticism, but it's going to be difficult to say this was an absolute failure of a season. 12 wins, playoff win, with how this quarterback room went and some of the injuries they have. So
I agree with you.
If they lose against the Bengals and get whipped by Houston, then, of course, it's going to be like guns a-blazing on them.
My fear is they're going to win in Houston and then just get smoked in the second round. And then it's going to be, maybe this wasn't. I don't know.
You know what I think this week's important, though? Like, we're looking way down the road here, I realize. But I still realize – I still think Houston is a much better chance to win than going to Baltimore. And if all the seeds hold off, they would go to Kansas City. If they beat Houston, probably. I actually think they have a better chance to go there than win than they do. I just think they would get murdered in Buffalo. I think Buffalo is playing at a higher level than Kansas City. Not that I think they would go to Kansas City and win, but I do think it's a more conducive road for them instead of at Baltimore and at Buffalo. That just sounds like no chance.
Yeah, the only positive about this is the teams lower in the brackets are probably better than normally they would be. You know, the Chargers
are pretty good. Yeah,
the Broncos aren't bad. Yeah. So there's a couple teams. I mean, there could be an upset. Look, when the Steelers make the play, or when we made the Super Bowl, they didn't have to go through New England, right? Why? Because somebody else knocked them off. That's base. If you're getting to that point of getting to New Orleans,
yeah,
somebody's going to have to do some dirty work for them.
No doubt.
Do you think now? Where has Minkah Fitzpatrick been the last couple of years? I know it's a popular thing on Steelers Twitter. Everybody goes, he hasn't made a play. I haven't seen him make he got that lucky interception because what's his name pulled up on the route. I don't know. I hear all the time that he's taken away the deep ball and all this kind of stuff, and that's great. But he's also allowed to make a play, I think.
Yeah, I mean I think he's went over 100 tackles, so that's something. I mean, I don't know if they use him as well as they want. They were so worried about getting beat over the top, just so worried about it that they're put him back there and tell him basically. I mean, for the most part, they haven't allowed a lot of deep balls. So if you look at it that way, but if you look at his stats, they are lacking in the big plays, especially the first couple of years he was here. I mean, I would go ask him about it, but he's another one of the 15 guys that don't talk to the media. So much for that.
Sidney Crosby does twice a day, by the way, every day. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Well, put it this way. The guys that don't talk, or a number of them, and the guys that do talk don't say anything. So then they get mad at you for, putting 1 and 1 equals 2. Okay, why don't you tell me? Oh, yeah, Minkah, he needs to start making plays, and it's just hard to say go make a play. I mean, the guy's not throwing the ball to him. He's not causing fumbles. I mean, he's just a very interesting figure this year of why he hasn't been able. Oh, not this year. I mean, majority of last year too of not being able to make some splash plays.
Yeah. And also I mean, before you go, I know we're up against it here, but do you have any stories about Mr. Josh Yohe?
Where do I start?
Oh no.
I'll leave the
I
floor
see
open
myself
to
to the door here.
Oh my goodness, I don't even know where to start at.
I do remember one time you tweeting something about him accompanying you for the 2008 AFC Championship game.
Oh, is that when he walked out onto the field? No, I know. There's one time. It was
That was the Rasheed Mathis game.
Yeah, Tommy Maddox threw an interception
in overtime.
The Mathis, and we're on the field, and Yohe just starts walking in the middle of the field while the play's going on.
I walked in front of the NFL Films guy, so it went nuts on me. Yeah,
like, what are you doing? There's play still going on.
Game's over.
He's no cheering in the press box. That does not count with Josh Yohe in Steelers football games. But other stuff. The guy is really what we used to do at the Daily News in McKeesport when he worked there. We knew he was coming back from a game. Me and John Sanson would hide from him and scare him. He would be scared like a little girl. We'd jump out around the corner. He would fall on the ground and stuff like that.
Very easy to scare. This is true.
Plus, then he'd come in and tell us stories about him crapping the bed and stuff like that, and his grandmother putting her hand in his poop and stuff like that. There's just so many Yohe stories.
That just came out of nowhere.
You remember that one, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, I'll tell. I was 13 years old. I had the flu or something. I woke up. I shit myself. I told my grandma. I said, "Grandma, it was really embarrassing. I shit myself." She's like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "You're 13 years old. You couldn't have done that." I said, "I got the flu or something. I don't know." And she literally reached into my bed under the covers. And she looks at me. She goes, "You pig!" I'm like, "You call me pig for? I'm sick, Grandma." So now we've made that story public
with 2 different color shoes on.
I did do that. I am colorblind.
A black shoe. What are you doing? There's numerous ones. I mean, I can't even think of some of the better ones now.
I'll have to share with you later. Somebody posted, I don't know if you saw it on Twitter, a Facebook ad for the NHL, and it's a picture of Yohe with a bunch of cigarettes in his mouth.
Oh yeah, I saw. Yeah, I think he sent that to me.
I'm sure I did.
Josh sent me that picture originally. I don't know where it come from. I might have tweeted that, and this person might have took it and used it to say, Yohe takes. What did you write? I forget. Something about Sullivan or something, or the ownership, right?
Something FSG. Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, they're just making me look like an asshole, which isn't hard, but
that was quite. The funny thing is my brother-in-law texted me like later in the day, saying, "Is this Josh?" I'm like, "Yes, it is." So it was getting around.
Oh man,
I mean, so many stuff, so much stuff. But yeah, I have to get back to this. I have a extremely large collection of Yohe pictures that are embarrassing.
Oh yeah,
I would just randomly tweet them at times.
Yes.
And some of my favorites, what some of my favorites are, the one where you're like working out or something.
Oh yeah, the gym picture.
Selfie of him working out, and he sends it to me. What do you think I'm going to do? Of course, I'm going to put it on Twitter.
Yeah, indeed, he did. I'm not even saying anything at this point.
Oh man, well, I love there's like some high school ones too, but you guys, I mean, how many years did you guys work, or how many years ago? It was like 20 years ago.
We started Monessen, right?
1999, and the Valley, the now defunct. Well, I guess it kind of exists. The Valley Independent again.
It was crazy. I worked at the Valley Independent Monessen, starting maybe 96. He comes on a little bit later. I moved to McKeesport. We're looking for somebody in McKeesport. I become the sports editor. I call him up. He comes in, does an interview. And one of my favorite things I did was called him up and said, "Josh, I really don't know how to say this to you, but we went through an interview process," and making it sound like he wasn't getting the job.
Oh, shit.
I'm like, "Oh, by the way, you got the job." So he gets there. We hire him. He's there 10 whatever years. Then he goes over to DK Pittsburgh Sports. Then I follow him.
Sorry.
He leaves and goes to this unnamed place that he may be working for now. And I follow him like 6 months later. So, I mean, I don't know if McAfee needs a or something here. I may have to put a good word in for you, but this is maybe the longest we ever worked together in 20 years.
I know.
I had a feature spread in the McKeesport News.
Did you?
Yeah, Mike DiVittorio.
Oh, not Mike D. Not Mike D.
Yeah, he interviewed me down at Mario's. Did a big spread.
You talk about
a character, we will say.
He's
Aspiring singer. He wrote a song called My Baby. He also wrote another song which we can't talk about on a family program, but
well, I think he actually did some pro wrestling as well, right?
Yes.
Did you understand anything he said? Well, what are you talking about, George? What's happening in the Still Valley?
Joe likes him because he's Italian. That's all.
He's a good guy, good paisan. He wrote a nice article about me. I was in the papers. Man. I was in the papers.
Look at this, Mike D. Mike D still goes to the Rib Fest on in August, and
Edmund Nelson.
The only person of a professional level that introduces himself to the people who you interviewed them. Say, "Hi, I'm Mike D." I mean, everybody thinks his name is Mike D, like D-E-E. I'm like, Mike. Nobody ever called him Mike. I don't think what did you ever call him?
His name. I don't even know how to spell it. Oh.
We always call him Mike D. Mike D.
Yeah, he's a good dude. He's on. Hey,
He's
Mark, but thanks for coming on, man. Yeah. I know you have your piano lessons to attend to.
Play some Bach before bed.
I was going to see if I could change it a little bit, virtual background.
There you go.
Looks like I'm taking my what do you call that? The headshot for the column for the Valley Independent. You remember that was Josh?
Look like you're at a comedy club. You're gonna do a tight five.
Yeah, he does now. He does.
Yeah. But before you go, Mark, what's who's got the Jory Rand position right now because he used to get crucified by Tomlin.
I think Josh can answer this one. I don't want to get in trouble.
Do you? But I mean, is it
you know what her name is?
To get zeroed in on?
Oh, I think the answer might be Brooke Pryor, who's not on Coach Tomlin's Christmas card list. If I had
she's the one that asked. I mean, it's the
playoff game in Buffalo, right?
She said your contract's up, and he walked out.
Yeah,
he's not. I mean, he doesn't like anybody really. He darts everybody, but
he and Tim Benz have had their issues over the years, right?
He's sort of laid off of Benz a little bit.
All right.
He'll dart everybody. He'll dart. The dart is like 5 words or less answer. Okay, I understand what that means. Ben used to be a big darter too. Yeah. 1-word answer. He made people cry in the locker room for his 1-word answers. Meanwhile, I'd start laughing. I'm like, I know what you're doing. But there's a number of them. He doesn't like any of us.
Wow. I know. And I don't mean that to like single anybody out, because I just always feel bad for like Jory Rand. He'd start going to ask a question. You're like, oh, good Lord.
Jory, didn't he? Yeah.
It was Jory. It was David Todd. It was Benzie. That was the big 3 back in the day.
Bill DeFabo.
No, DeFabio.
DeFabio. Sorry, DeFabio.
I heard he's in bad shape, so.
Oh, I take it back.
I saw on Baco the other day, but those are the guys don't show. You remember that there's a guy that came a couple of weeks ago. His name was a couple of years ago, named Tank. And you looked at him, Tomlin says, Kenny's getting his ass kicked out there. And Tomlin goes, thanks for bringing it up like that. Well, he is getting his ass kicked. That guy hasn't been back since.
I think it's okay that the Steelers media takes heat. I think you're all a bunch of idiots, to be honest, except for you and a couple
Whoa. I know what the Penguins media looks like.
I'm not defending us at all.
And the worst of all is the Penguins, Pirates media.
Wow.
Why do they have media?
I was gonna say they have.
I don't understand why. I don't understand why the whole city should just be like, no, it's a con. Leave.
Now you're getting rid of me and Yoey now. What are you gonna like?
Yeah, I don't. It's they don't try to win. As much as you want to say, whatever you want to say about the Steelers, that they think being 9-8 is a winning. Yeah, they're trying to win.
That's right.
They're trying to win.
I always say that the Steelers and Penguins, say what you want about them, they're always trying to win. But whether everything they do is correct or not, the Pirates, you absolutely cannot say that. You're right.
Yep. And Pitt Panthers, don't ever say a word about. Somehow I Google. My brother sends me like message boards of Pitt people, and they just torch me to death. I'm like, what did I ever do to Pitt? I guess I said something about Kenny Pickett one time that
that's all it takes.
Refused to play in Seattle. Oh. I'm anti-Pitt and anti-Kenny Pickett now. Wow, those people are crazy. Although the Pitt people hate Josh more than anybody.
Yeah, they do. All because I said they had a horseshit season when they went 3-9,
Oh,
which I thought was like
That's a pretty
reasonable.
fair point.
Yeah.
They hate Josh.
Oh, they hate me. Well, how's their guy doing in Philly now?
He gave me
Backing himself.
Kenny Pickett gave me one of my favorite jokes ever. Yeah, I will tell it in front of 4 people. I said, I'm glad he's in Philly. He can shop at his favorite store. Wah, 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 wah.
Have you guys ever seen that before, though? I think the ball threw him this weekend on that play.
Oh, yeah.
You know, there's a Zapruder film of the Pitt people pointing out saying his hand was hit and that caused him to do that.
Oh.
Yep. Yeah.
Slow down frame by frame. But I've
Man,
never seen somebody get their hand hit and he tumbles to the ground like a whatever he did.
Well, was it crazier than Kenny who's the guy before Ben Maddox? Max, when he got paralyzed by the ghost of Hank Williams in Nashville. Guy slid and came up paralyzed. Like no one even hit him.
Man.
Were you there, Mark? You were there, right?
You remember when they threw garbage in Tommy Maddox's show? And Channel 11 had to go and interview him.
No, that was the game when I walked on the field after that game, the Jacksonville game in 2005. Yeah.
I think I've said this on this podcast before, but I was at the game when Cliff Stout, because we were on the Steelers bench side, and he came off the field and he gave the fans the finger. And that was the late 70s, early 80s. Like there was 5 kids there and no women. We had a real home field advantage. And he came back the next season with the USFL, and they threw everything they hadn't thrown at Dave Parker at him. And I'll never forget this. The greatest thing I ever heard. He was at the Pittsburgh airport, the old airport, the little airport, crying before he got on the plane to go home. He goes, "I won't come back to Pittsburgh even if it rained diamonds."
Pretty good quote.
I use it when I go to shitholes around this country. Like, I'm not going back to Peoria, even if it rains diamonds. Or it's actually Evansville, Indiana, actually.
Well, and Mark, before you go, I just finish up. What are your thoughts on the Penguins? How do they look?
I would have no idea. I'll tell you the absolute truth here. I haven't watched a minute of it because I got YouTube TV. And I don't feel like paying for that goofy app that they're trying to sell to make me watch Penguin games. So I'm drawing a line in the sand. I'm not paying for a goofy app.
Corey set you up for your line, and
apparently
you're tired because you missed it.
Did I? Oh, let's rewind that. Cut that.
Yeah. So, in your opinion, in your expert opinion, Mark,
okay,
how do the Penguins look this year?
Man, they're exhausted. Of course, they're tired, but once somebody responds to when they're tired, they're exhausted. So I think
don't cut that whole thing, Corey. Just leave that whole thing.
I think it's
exhausted. When somebody comes to me first and say Pens look tired, my response would be exhausted, and I will continue to do it until every response knows what I am doing, and that will go on forever. Because like if the playoffs started today, gimmick that I do. If the season ended today,
it's only week 4, Mark.
People go crazy and they just don't understand. Look at this idiot. I'm like, yeah.
Sid and Gino should do a TJ Watt. They should just start sitting out power plays. I'm saving myself for next week.
Only when they're down in the third period. Yeah.
We did have load management with George Pickens like week 5. You remember? Just 1 week.
Yeah,
that's right.
The magical punishment / load management.
Yeah, that's what they say. Never mind. I was gonna make a joke. I was gonna make a Yoey joke with load management.
Yep.
I don't know.
We'll let Joe do those jokes.
Oh, well, Mark, we appreciate you coming on, talking some Steelers, and check them out on Twitter. That's where it's great. I like the articles there. It's all right there. Pat McAfee Show correspondent. You can see him on there every week. So here we go. Maybe they have 2 games. Maybe they go all the way to the Super Bowl. Probably not.
Thanks for coming on, Mark. We really
Mark.
appreciate it.
All right, we'll see you guys.
Great stuff right there.